In 1970, the world felt like it was spinning on a new axis of social and cultural change. But for Donna, a student nurse immersed in the demanding world of textbooks and clinical rotations, life was a structured routine. For her birthday that year, her mother presented her with a gift meant to bring a touch of nostalgic whimsy to her small apartment. A large Raggedy Ann doll, with its bright red yarn hair, soft cloth body, and a sweetly painted-on smile, it was the picture of childhood innocence. Donna was charmed. She placed it on the corner of her bed, a cheerful sentinel in the room she shared with her roommate and fellow nursing student, Angie. They christened it Annabelle. For the first week, Annabelle was just that, a doll, a piece of decor. But the fabric of their reality soon began to fray at the edges. It started with movements too subtle to be certain of. Donna would come home after a grueling 12-hour shift, exhausted, and notice the doll's arm seemed to be in a slightly different position, its head tilted at a new angle. She'd straighten it, blaming her own fatigue for misremembering. Angie, too, noticed the small shifts. They'd have brief, dismissive conversations. "Did you move, Annabelle?" one would ask. "No, I thought you did," the other would reply, a faint, unspoken question hanging in the air between them. The plausible deniability evaporated when the movements became flagrant. They would leave the apartment with the doll sitting primly on Donna's bed and return to find it slumped in a chair in the living room, staring at the front door, as if awaiting their arrival. The unease morphed into a creeping dread. Their small apartment, once a sanctuary from the pressures of their studies, began to feel violated. There was no logical explanation. They lived alone, and they held the only key. A cold, watchful presence seemed to emanate from the doll's simple button eyes. Then came the notes. Returning from class one afternoon, Angie was the first to spot it, a small square of what looked like parchment paper lying on the thick shag carpet. The handwriting was a wobbly, uncertain scrawl, like that of a very young child learning to write. It said, "Help us." A chill went through both women. They had no parchment paper in the apartment. Where could it have possibly come from? More notes began to appear over the following days, always in the same childlike script. One of them was particularly chilling. "Help Lou." Lou was a close friend of theirs, a confident and down-to-earth young man who had voiced his intense dislike for the doll from the moment he first saw it. He told Donna he sensed a palpable evil radiating from it and urged her to get rid of it. She, still clinging to a thread of rationality, brushed off his concerns as over-the-top superstition. The doll, she reasoned, was just a doll, convinced something supernatural was happening. But believing it to be benign, the now frightened women decided to contact a medium. During a séance held in the apartment, the medium claimed to have made contact with the spirit of a 7-year-old girl named Annabelle Higgins. She told a tragic story of how the child had lived and died on the property where their apartment building was now constructed, years before it was built. The spirit, the medium explained, felt a connection to the doll and, through it, to the kindness of the two nurses. All she wanted was to be loved and accepted. Pity trumped fear. Their nursing instincts kicking in, Donna and Angie gave the spirit permission to inhabit the doll. They began to call the doll Annabelle, believing they were comforting a lost little girl. This decision proved to be a grave mistake. The paranormal activity didn't cease. It intensified, and its focus turned malevolent, zeroing in on Lou. He began having terrible nightmares, all featuring the Raggedy Ann doll. One night, the nightmare bled into reality. He awoke in a state of sleep paralysis, completely unable to move or scream. At the foot of his bed, silhouetted in the dim light from the window, was Annabelle. He watched in abject terror as the doll slowly levitated from the bed, glided through the air to his chest, and then stopped. An immense pressure bore down on him, and he felt phantom hands closing round his throat, choking him until he blacked out. The final, terrifying proof came a few days later. Lou and Angie were in the apartment, planning a road trip and looking at maps. They suddenly heard a loud rustling sound from Donna's bedroom, which was empty. Fearful but determined, Lou went to investigate. He entered the dark room and a wave of cold washed over him. He felt a distinct presence behind him, as if someone was standing there. He spun around to find nothing. Suddenly, a burning sensation erupted on his chest. He looked down and, to his horror, saw 3 distinct claw marks raking across his skin, bleeding and raw. They were hot to the touch, as if seared into his flesh by an invisible, demonic hand. There was no denying it now. This was not the spirit of a child. This was something aggressive and dangerous. The physical attack on Lou was the breaking point. Donna finally accepted the terrifying truth and agreed they needed help. They contacted an Episcopal priest who, recognizing the gravity of the situation, referred them to 2 specialists in the field, Ed and Lorraine Warren, renowned paranormal investigators. The Warrens arrived at the apartment and, after a thorough investigation and interviews with Donna, Angie, and Lou, delivered a chilling verdict. The medium had been wrong. Spirits, they explained, do not possess objects. Demonic, non-human entities do. A demon had attached itself to the doll, using it as a conduit to manipulate the women. The story of Annabelle Higgins was a classic deception, a mask worn by the entity to gain their sympathy and, ultimately, their permission to enter their lives. The Warrens explained that the entity's goal was likely to escalate its activities from infestation, strange noises, moving objects, to oppression, physical and mental attacks on Lou, and finally to its true goal, possession of a human soul. After a priest performed an exorcism rite to cleanse the apartment, the Warrens took the doll with them for safekeeping. The entity's power, however, was not confined to the apartment. On the long drive back to their home in Connecticut, the Warrens experienced a harrowing ordeal. The car's engine repeatedly stalled, the power steering failed, and the brakes grew terrifyingly unresponsive, especially on sharp turns. It was only when Ed took out a vial of holy water and doused the Raggedy Ann doll that the mechanical failures instantly ceased. Deeming the object too dangerous to be left unsecured, Ed Warren built a specially consecrated glass case for it in their Occult Museum. There, the real Annabelle doll sits to this day, a simple toy of cloth and yarn locked away from the world. A stark hand-painted sign is affixed to the case, a solemn reminder of the dark energy tied to it. Warning: positively do not open. The innocent-looking doll remains a silent testament to a terrifying truth. Sometimes, the most mundane objects can become gateways for the most profound evil.